Okay, we now have our server 2012 loaded up. You can see that on the VirtualBox it's called server 1, but we haven't yet renamed it and we haven't given it an IP address. So first step is to go into Server Manager and rename the computer name. In this case I'm going to call it SRV underscore 2012, in fact SRV1 underscore 2012, just to signify that we're using a 2012 box. And we click OK on that. We'll get a message about restarting it, but we won't actually restart the computer just yet. Once you've done that, we are then going to go down and restart later. We're going to change the IP address and we're going to give it a fixed IP address because this machine is going to also become a DHCP server. So again, domain controllers, DHCP servers, etc. will always have fixed IP addresses. Under the following IP address, that's IP6, we want to come to IPv4 and use the following IP address. I'm going to go with 10.0.0.1 to match its server 1, and the default gateway I'll make it 10.0.0.100. We won't need one, but just in case. And it's also going to be the DNS server, so it'll be the same address, 10.0.0.1. And OK on that, and OK on that. So we have now set up an IP address, and again, if you refresh up here, you'll see the IP address not coming up. You won't see the computer name changing until we restart the computer. And there's just a couple of other things that we might change. For example, we'll turn off the Internet Explorer Enhanced Security. We might also go along and turn off our firewall. So again, we've got Windows updates. We can't really do updates because we're on a 10 network. And again, our network is internal only, so we can't go to the internet. Let's see, what else can we do? Windows Firewall, turn it off. So turn Windows Firewall on. Obviously, this is not something you should be turning off completely on a live server. It's just purely and simply for the exercise we're doing. So once we've done that, we need to restart a computer. So go ahead and restart. And when it restarts, it'll have a proper IP address, proper computer name. Shouldn't take too long to actually do the restart. And once that's restarted, we'll then go in and we will start doing the install of Active Directory. Okay, once the computer is restarted, Server Manager will automatically open up, and we should see then that we've got the computer name and IP address all pre-configured. We'll now run through the installation of Active Directory. So when we click on local server, we get information about this computer. So now that it's up, we can see it's called SRV1 underscore 2012. Public Windows Firewall is off at the moment, and we have a fixed IP address. Our next section then is to install Active Directory. We do that by going to Manage in Server Manager, Add Roles and Features. And once we click on Add Roles and Features, we can go Next on this. It is a rollout feature-based installation. And there's our computer name. That's when we're going to install it on. And we're going to go for Active Directory Domain Services. Pop up here saying there are some additional features and dependencies that we can install. So let's add the features. Now you could pick DHCP, but when you go to do it, you'll get a message saying that you can't install more than one Active Directory installation. So generally, it will only allow us to install Active Directory by itself without any other features. So we're now into the starting installation for DHCP and Active Directory. Okay, now that we have Active Directory installed as well as DHCP server installed, you'll see where it says here promote the server to a domain controller, and this one complete your configuration. In Windows Server 2012 it's very much a two-step process. The first process to install a feature, the second process is to configure the feature. So we've got two features that we need to configure. We'll initially start off with Active Directory Domain Services. Once we close this wizard, you'll see a little exclamation mark up here beside the flag, and you'll see under notifications you've got configuration required for DHCP and configuration required for Active Directory. So we're going to run with promote this server to be a domain controller. And remember, the domain controller can manage all the users and computers in your organization. Now, during the installation here, this is a brand new installation of Active Directory, so we'll be adding a new forest because we don't actually have one at the moment. So, add a new forest. We're going to specify the root domain name, so we're going to call this training.local. Okay, that will be our forest stroke domain name. It will go off and check if that exists on the network, and it shouldn't exist because it's a brand new one. And here you can see it's also going to install DNS for us along with global catalog. Okay, so we can accept that. It's looking for a password for restore mode, so I'm just going to go with the same usual password. Only going to be required if we need to restore Active Directory. Next on that. Mentions here about delegation, that's fine because we have no internet access and that we can't go to a higher level. So next on that, it will then give us the NetBIOS name of training. We have our fully qualified name of training.local and our NetBIOS domain name of training, and that pops up, which is a good sign. Next on that, and now it will go off and configure Active Directory for us. Excuse me. These are our default directories where our database now is going to be installed. We can accept all these. We can go next on that. We'll do all this prerequisite checks, and once it's done the prerequisite checks to make it a domain controller. Now, they're all passed, but there are a couple of warnings here. These are not something that you need to worry about at the moment, and I'm not going to go through them really. Basically, all prerequisite checks have passed successfully. So we click on install, and basically you'll see the starting up the installation, and basically it'll walk its way through the installation at this stage. And once that's complete, then we can, once the computer is restarted after the installation of Active Directory, you'll see that instead of logging on as the administrator of the local machine, server 1, we're now logging on to the main training. So it's important to make sure that you're always logging on with your clients to the domain. Once you put in that, we'll apply our settings. The computer will restart, or not restart, but load our desktop and load our server manager, and we'll see now that we actually have Active Directory installation. And when we go to our tools menu, you'll see that you have options such as Active Directory users and computers, which will then allow us to add users and computers to our domain, etc. Okay. You may find it takes a few minutes not to load up after AD has been installed for the first time. So once we got our manager loaded up, we can go to our tools. When we click on tools, we now see that we've got Active Directory domains and trusts, modules for Windows, PowerShell, sites and services, and the main one here, Active Directory users and computers. And we can see here that we have our train.local domain, and in here we've got our domain controller, which is our server 1 2012. We currently have no computers, and we have some default users. So in the next video we'll look at adding some computers and adding some users to Active Directory itself.